As we said, my name's Abby, and I'm Head of Technology Enhanced Learning at the Centre for Teacher Education at the University of Warwick. And we're going to be talking about initial teacher training, that's what ITT is, in the digital realm, and moving complex face-to-face teaching into asynchronous delivery.
Yes, and my name is Miriam Averna-Joint. I work with Abby in CTE, and I'm an academic technologist.
Slide, please. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background information as to what CTE is. As I said, it's the Centre for Teacher Education at the University of Warwick, and we deliver postgraduate talk programmes to graduates looking to gain qualified teacher status. We also run an international MA programme and optional introduction to teaching modules for undergraduates studying certain subjects, so like English, for example. Our PGC programmes equip students to teach in the early years, primary and secondary phases, and they're delivered locally within the Coventry-Warwickshire area, nationally increasingly, and also we have an international fully online programme. We offer a value-led curriculum model to develop early career teachers, and the model is underpinned by three Warwick teacher values, which is social justice, intellectual curiosity and creativity. And these values run across the curriculum, and the progression of knowledge and skills is related to these values. And then the core content framework, which details the minimum entitlement of all student teachers, is then mapped and integrated within the value-led curriculum model. Next slide, please. Okay, so why do we need to do this? Well, post-COVID, there's been a fall in applications and enrolments within, mainly within PGCE programmes, but across the sector as a whole, really. And partly this is to do with, it's a sector-wide trend, but also it's to do with the DfE's initial teacher education market review and reaccreditation process, and that's destabilised the sector and added recruitment uncertainty, I suppose you would call it. And then alongside that, we've also got challenges with a number of teachers year on year leaving the profession. So this is due to a variety of issues, but some of them include current teacher workload pressures and also recent pay disputes. So the need for us to offer alternative provision to reach the widest possible audience is kind of important. And logically, this means that we need to increase our online programme provision. Next slide, please. So this context has evolved since we began what's called a strategy renewal process, which we'd already identified several challenges that we wanted to work on, including how we could utilise our expertise in online and blended learning and spread this across all of our programmes, not just our online programmes, how we could offer cost-effective teacher training in geographically dispersed, hard to recruit to locations where in-person attendance at Warwick is not possible, and then also how we can compete with other digital teacher education providers who offer a lower cost model approach to initial teacher education than we do at Warwick. Next slide, please. So what are we doing? Well, we are currently developing a new curriculum ready for September 2024, and that's what we're going to be talking about mostly today, or a component of it today. We're also creating a digital PGC programme based upon our international PGC programme, and that will be delivered just to UK schools, but all around the UK. And then we're also expanding our international qualified teacher status programme as well. Next slide, please. So what we're going to be talking about today are known as ITAPs, and I do apologise for all the acronyms. You just kind of have to get used to it with initial teacher education. They're everywhere. ITAPs are intensive training and practice opportunities that are a specific and focused element of the new IT curriculum. The idea is that they're intended to help consolidate students' knowledge of key evidence-based principles for effective teaching. So it enables students to apply and integrate these key principles into their developing professional practice. It strengthens the link between what they study at university and what they do in the classroom. And the way the ITAPs are working is that some elements will take place in schools and some will take place in the university, and they are delivered and led and supported by a range of people, a range of experts. Some of them are university staff and some of them are school staff. Next slide, please. Okay, so ITAPs, we've got 4 ITAPs which we're developing, and there's 20 hours of input per ITAP, so they are pretty intensive pieces of work within the face-to-face component of the curriculum. Effectively a full week is what we're really talking about. So we're doing 4 ITAPs, so we're doing behaviour, planning, phonics and literacy and inclusion, and today we're going to be talking about the behaviour ITAP. We're following the Education Endowment Foundation's effective professional development guidance. So we're looking at how we build knowledge, motivate teachers, develop teaching techniques, and then embed that into practice. So sort of a broad outline of what an ITAP would look like would be they'd have a build component, which is delivered by Warwick University staff. They then have a develop component, which could be delivered by Warwick, or it could be delivered by staff in schools, and it does vary depending on the subject. Then the students have an opportunity to embed what they've learned by going out into school and trying different things, and then they come back to the university to grow, to further develop what it is they've been doing within the previous days. Now, this is fine if you're based in Coventry, where the University of Warwick is. You can come into university, you can go out to a local school, and then you can come back to university. That's great, it's really not a challenge. But when you're looking at students that are based all over the UK, I've potentially, there's a sort of talking about the geographical scarcity of teaching course availability. The east coast of England is an area that applies to. So if you've got students based in, let's say, Scunthorpe or somewhere like that, then they're not going to be able to easily get to Warwick to be able to do this. And then looking from our international perspective, we've got students all around the world, but let's again take as an example, we've got students in Japan, in Tokyo. How can we provide the provision for them, and then what do they do when they go out into schools? And that's been the challenge for us, and that's what we're still working through at the moment. Next slide, please.
Okay. So now we'd like to hear from everybody that's watching today. We have a short poll on Vivox, so you can scan the QR code with your phone and you'll be able to see the poll on there, which I'm just going to open shortly. So bear with me 1 second. Okay, can everybody see the poll on their phones and on the screen? I'm just going to open that up now. Okay. So I think oh, okay, right. I can't actually, hang on a minute. That bar's really annoyingly placed over the results. So it looks like most of you have, okay, you've given yourself quite a low rating, which is interesting. So I'm just going to open the next question, which I don't think a lot of you will be able to answer based on those results, but let's just give it a go. Right. So next question then.
Getting a nice range of
yeah.
it's coming up here. The timeline seems to be the
Yeah, it seems to
main
be
one.
an
Yeah.
interactive video, my
An interactive
favorite as
video,
well.
Yeah, you
I'll
like
just,
that, don't you?
I'll just close that part. Yeah, my favorite. Right, let me reshare my slides. Okay, so hopefully, are we good? Oh no, hang on. 1 second. Okay, so some of you obviously didn't know what H5P or were not familiar with what it is. So this slide explains a little bit more about it, but how and why we've used it is more important, and we'll come to that shortly. So we have decided to use H5P interactive books, which I'll also demo later. So we've taken something that's quite text heavy and not overly engaging, and by using the H5P interactive book, Vivox and Padlet, we've made something that would have otherwise been quite tedious become something a bit more interactive with an element of gamification to it as well. Oh, and this video, which I'm really hoping will play and you'll be able to hear, is very short. It just demos very quickly what sort of things we've done with the H5P interactive book. Okay. Right. So hopefully you heard all of that. Okay. So just get to my notes. So this slide shows a few more of the examples of what we created within the H5P activities. So this was just a reflective piece, just to gauge understanding and students' understanding. We added a image slider to just make something that was just again a PowerPoint slide become a bit more engaging. Where did a Padlet, as I mentioned before, and also this was a drag and drop, which I think somebody mentioned that they'd used before, which is great. Okay. So why H5P? Well, H5P creates activities that are fully reusable or reusable learning objects, RLOs. It combines different content types with deeper comprehension. CTE staff are actually very familiar with the H5P interface already. It can also help to foster student engagement. Does not require any knowledge of coding, and thus is very beginner friendly, and it doesn't use Flash, so it works quite well on mobile devices as well. So some of the theories that sort of underpinned our current project. So the TPAC model, which we're using to structure the course, so essentially developing the course in Moodle, keeping the learning objectives in mind, taking the ITAP content and converting it into an interactive digital equivalent by using the most appropriate technological tools that are out there to do the job. The cognitive load theory is, I think, self-explanatory. The studies around this support the notion that if something is smaller, it will take less work in memory to process and thus be retained and later accessed by the user. By using H5P, we created bite-sized content that in turn avoid putting extra load on students' cognition and memory. And we have constructive alignment here. We wanted to ensure that the tests, quizzes and activities we created help to achieve the learning objectives set out at the start of each section. The manner in which students were being tested would allow them to learn and commit to memory what they had just been shown. Oh, another poll, how exciting. Right, so I'll just open up the poll again. Okay, so just asking you what we would need to consider in developing the digital PGC resources, what sort of considerations we might have to look at. So if you want to vote with your phones, that'll be great.
Yeah, accessibility is a key one. And I
Mm,
noticed someone's put a comment in the chat about that H5P is reasonably accessible, which it is. Yeah, which
yeah,
is good.
yeah, that's a nice mixer.
Mm.
Okey-dokey. All right, that looks great. We got any more? No, that's it. Okay, back to the. Okay, what my notes
Yeah.
saying? Oh, that's you. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. Over to me. Okay, so some of the considerations that we've come up with as we've been working on this, one of them is digital fatigue. Now, the official definition of digital fatigue is it's a form of mental exhaustion that occurs after an intense amount of screen time. And whilst that is still relevant, one of the things, the extra things, if you like, that we need to consider as part of the digital fatigue whole is the sheer volume of the number of platforms and pieces of software that students have to engage with. As Miriam's already said, we use Moodle as our learning management system. Moodle has got loads of plugins that you can make available to students. H5P is one of those. And then within H5P, you've got loads of different modules that you can actually use. All great, but these start to add layers of complexity. We've also got a coursework submission platform. Our reading lists are controlled through Talis Aspire. We've got Echo 360, which we use for recording classes. If we deliver online sessions, we deliver them through Class Collaborate. Students have got access to various bits of technology. We manage the placement aspect of our students' time with a different piece of software. And then on top of that, students have got to contend with all the technology that they have to go to with the schools. So they've got this huge amount of technology that they have to deal with. And we're then turning around, next slide, please, and saying to them that they've got to engage with, we're forcing them to go online by giving them this opportunity to undertake these asynchronous materials. But one of the things we then got to consider is that balance between passive learning and active learning. So if we're asking, and you can see the definition on the screen here of how you can potentially make what's a fairly passive activity of video watching into a more active activity by putting in quizzes and things like that in between, which is great, but you're starting to bring in, you're adding complexity to the process. So if you wanted for students, they're going to have to, let's say, observe a lesson. They're going to have to maybe watch a video or listen to somebody lecturing online. They're also going to have to read through a journal article and these are all fairly passive. So then we then turn around and say we then want to add active learning opportunities. So it might be that we give them opportunities to reflect, as Miriam's already shown you, problem solving and role playing type activities, which I hasten to add we haven't put into online yet, but we might do. What you've got to do, it's not just a matter of staff saying, oh yeah, that looks good, or no, I don't like that. It's about planning and really, really planning the activity so that you know what they're having to engage with, the technologies that they're having to engage with, and how much technology they're having to engage with. And you can actually plan it much more formally. So we sort of have to become a little bit more prescriptive, I think, in how we sort of support staff to create these kinds of resources, because we're having to bear in mind that the students may have the digital fatigue when accessing these particular resources. Next slide, please. So another consideration that we've experienced is digital communities of practice. So this is the Wenger trainer definition, which is that they're a group of people who share a concern or a passion for something they do and learn how to do it better as they interact regularly. Now, that's a perfect description of our student body, if you like. That's what they're doing. If we're going to deliver this digitally, then obviously the same definition applies, but it's the community of practices created, developed and maintained online. And so one of the key benefits for us, if we're looking to expand the range of students that we have, and they're in different locations in the UK or overseas, is that we can connect a wide range of people, irrespective of where they're located, the time zone they're in, or any cultural limitations. Now, in this example, I'm not talking about online assessed group work, that's separate, but we chose to develop a Rainbow Allies community as our test community, mainly because we had funding for buying out a particular member of staff's time, and this is what they were interested in. But we basically had really poor uptake with our digital community of practice. And when we started to unpick some of the reasons as to why this was the case, we found that building trust online is really complicated. You have to give it far more time than you think you do. And you also have to structure it more formally in order to get the best out of it. Another issue is member familiarity. And again, this does particularly apply to this particular type of group. And so what we ended up doing was saying that, okay, well, we'll maybe put some different types of groups together. So it might be that we discuss something like a community of practice to support students with dyslexia or students with caring responsibilities. I have to say we didn't get a huge uptake from those either, but we had slightly more, I think, than we did with the Rainbow Allies group. And it's that mix of getting the right topic, building member familiarity, and with that comes trust, and then therefore they're more likely to talk about it and engage more effectively. And what it basically boils down to for us is timing. And when we introduce that digital community of practice and giving the students, again, it's sort of scaffolded opportunities in order to be able to participate in it, and then they will take it forward. But it is proving quite a challenge to get the students to engage with digital communities of practice outside of the assessed group work moniker. Next slide, please. So this particular slide, this is a really useful infographic from the Digital Poverty Alliance, and they define digital poverty as the inability to interact with the online world fully when, where, and how an individual needs to. Operationally, this definition generally means that they're lacking in one of the following things. So it means they have poor connectivity, and we all know that Wi-Fi is less, good Wi-Fi is less universal than you'd like to think. And again, if we're talking about trying to reach students that are based in more remote areas within the UK, Wi-Fi is definitely a challenge. And then when you take that to an international context, you have some serious issues with connectivity in certain areas. Other challenges would be things like a suitable device. We've heard of sort of anecdotal stories of teachers through COVID saying that there were children writing A-level essays on mobile phones during homeschooling. Whilst you've obviously got to design things for mobile first, that actually isn't a particularly appropriate use of something. If you're trying to get students to write essays, then they need laptops, bigger devices that they can more easily operate on. So that's another poverty issue that can come up. And then the last two kind of conflate together. So it's about lack of skills and also lack of confidence. And we certainly find that with our students. It's particularly in the older population, but it's not exclusively in the older population. We get a lot of, I suppose you call them second career adults who come into teaching after having done something else. So confidence for them is a real thing. They really struggle with it. It's not that they can't do it, they can, it's just that they don't have the confidence to do it. So then the argument is, well, do you design resources for the lowest common denominator? But then that means you're running the risk of going back into the passive learning activities that students are just going to get bored with. If you want the active learning activities, you've then got to design and give the students the opportunity to access them on better devices, and they need the better connectivity to be able to do that. We've found that managing expectations is quite an important component in this. So our students get clear guidance as to the type of technology that they're going to need to complete the programme. And that's particularly important for our international students. And then the other thing that we're working on, and Miriam's developing a Moodle course for the students to use. It's about signposting at the start of the programme what technology is going to be used, and more importantly, why we're using it, and then giving them easy access to it so that we can turn around and say, here's what you need to use, this is why you're using it, and this is where you get the support to use it from as well. So that's these are the sort of the lessons that we've learned. Next slide, please.
Another 4 minutes.
Yeah, I'd say we're pretty much done. So this is the references, which if we share the presentation, obviously they'll be there and they're available for everybody. And then our contact details are on the slide. If you would like to contact either one of us to talk about this more, we'd be more than happy to engage with people.